Whatever you receive from God or from anyone else, whether that be, let's start with God, the grace of God, right? Whatever you receive, don't hold that back, right? Just let it go.
Hello and welcome to the Happy Money Podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro. I am joined by my co-host, Michael Barbaro. Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How you doing, Bob?
What are we talking about today?
Talking about whose money is it do I really have? And I wanted to start out, I got on my phone here. This is Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the talents. This is a longer one, so I'll read you bits and pieces of
Mike,
it.
before you read that, the first thing that popped into my mind is, whose money do I really have? When I was you were a little kid, it's like, you got my money, Mike.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that popped into my mind. I don't know why, but I love the topic that you picked, because last week, what did we talk about? We talked about the love of money,
yeah.
Right? And now this week, the parable is awesome because everyone can extrapolate their own personal thought or their own personal story from it. But I never even thought about what you're going to bring up right now, as far as it's not just about money and about talents. Yeah. That's what a lot of people focus on with this parable. So go ahead and read it.
So this is verse 15 in chapter 25. This is about the master giving his servant essentially gold or talents or whatever their currency was. To one, he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to a third 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. And so in summary, basically the one who received 5 got back 5. He went out and traded. The one who received 2 made out with another 2, but the one who received 1 went off and dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. And at the end of it, he says to the 2 who made the money, the master, he goes, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And he says, "Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities." And to the last one who made nothing, who dug it in the ground, he's like, "You wicked and lazy servant." And that's literally what it says. He called him wicked and he called him lazy because he chose to act in a way according out of fear rather than, you've given me something and now I got to go do something with this.
I feel like that happened to me, Mike, in my life when I was at the restaurant, because at some point you don't trust in God. Maybe that one that had the 1, he went and dug it. He didn't trust in God and he didn't understand what God had in store for him. And I feel like when I was at the restaurant, Mickey, I was in the kitchen hiding. And that's why I really didn't want to be there. That's why I understood at some level that God had something great in store for me and in store for my family. And I think God has something great in store for everybody. But sometimes we don't trust in God and we're afraid and we go and hide, like that servant went and dug a hole. Whereas the first 2 servants, they were open to hear what God's plan was. And they were willing to take action. It's great to be open, but you need to still have the action. You still need to take talent, the money, or the skill, and improve upon the skill. And you're going to find a lot of challenges and a lot of heartaches along the path. But as you see, the first 2 servants, they really trusted in God and his plan, and they put his plan and their plan into action, and they thrived through it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, of course, the invitation for everyone is like, you've been given a gift, but even just think of that in terms of being realistic. You know what I mean? Like, I'll phrase it like this. How boring is it that God gives us something and we don't do anything with it? Like, you're missing out on this incredible opportunity that God has in store for you. Like you're going to go your own way in a sense. It's like, it's kind of dull. It's kind of a boring life. You know what I mean?
Michael, do you think that a lot of people don't have enough quiet time, don't have enough reflection, and don't ponder what their unique talents are, what their gifts are? And I was, I fell prey to it. You get married, you're in love, you start a family, and then all of a sudden life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And you have to pay bills and you start coming into some difficult times, some challenging times. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I was made for a certain reason, but I've got all this other stuff in the way, which is called life. And you go off that path and you veer off the path. Fortunately for me, God sent something called the Great Recession in 2008. I lost my father in 2007. Yeah. That made me realize what life is short here.
Yeah.
I was built for something differently. And if you're listening to this, I really want you to take that to heart. I mean, life is not guaranteed. We're all made for something greater. And I realized that back in 2008. And I realized that I have to stop making excuses. We can all make excuses, whether it's the recession, whether we have family, whether they have bills to pay, whether we're not feeling great. That's all well and good. You can continue to make that. You can be a victim. But at some point, you have to take account of your life. And I did back then. And I said, well, what am I made here for? And I started to think, Mike, the question was, it's not what do I like? I was asking the question, what do I not want? Whereas the question you should say, what do I want? And what do I think God wants from me? And it's really hard now with all the noise and social media to really sit back and ponder and reflect upon what, God has in store for my life.
Yeah. Even to go with that, you say, what do I want? And there is truth to that. But the question also is what do I need? Right. Because there's no growth in always achieving what you want. Like I said, you kind of do need that. Like if I don't know, your parents or whoever say, I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. And you're like, I have no desire for that at all. Probably not a good idea to be a doctor or a lawyer, but maybe there's something in that, an experience or whatever that you might need to grow from that. Does that kind of make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And it's difficult as a parent because we think we know what's best for you. And sometimes we get in your way, and it's challenging because of the pressures of society that you want to be a great parent. And if you think that your child is not succeeding or not making you look good, and parents, that's a struggle for a lot of us. We live through our children. We want, and it's maybe selfish in a way, but we want the best for you. And I think I know what's best for you. When in reality, sometimes I don't know what's best for you. Sometimes you know what's best for yourself. And to have that dialogue and that conversation between father and son is really important to say, Michael, what do you want, Mike? Instead of me always telling you what you want, especially starting from an early age. I think I wanted to go through a couple of skills that parents can teach their children, that relates to the parable that you read, and also that it's really, really powerful. I think the first one is delayed gratification. When you have something, and that's what I've taught you, is as a child, sometimes a child wants something right away. You try to delay that gratification. And we have it in the world today. If you want to buy something, you go out and you spend money on a credit card. Yeah. And you get it, and you don't even enjoy it or appreciate it. But if you can delay the gratification as a child, save up money or do some work to get that thing that you want, you appreciate it more. And it seems like longer term as an adult, you'll be wanting less and you'll be appreciating more, and you'll be working harder for that thing that you want.
And I've got a story about that later, but let me ask you about, raising your children. What does success look like in raising children as a parent?
That is a great question. If I had to rip it down and make it as simple as possible, it's having children growing up to be happy, successful, confident adults who can make decisions on their own. Right? My job is to prepare you for the road, not to prepare the road for you.
That's good.
And I think that's truly important. And that is really hard because, as you're growing up, it seems as if I was telling you what to do all the time. Do this, do that, do your homework. But as you got to be a teenager, I started to try to have the conversation with you where I was trying to make you come up with your own decisions. And as you become a young adult, a lot of young adults nowadays are stricken with fear. They don't know how to make decisions because we weren't taught at a younger age to make decisions for yourself.
Yeah. And there's even something with that about making decisions. It's also giving the kid the freedom to make their own decision to a degree and even watch them mess up at times, right?
That's so hard.
Yeah,
that's a hard thing to do as a parent.
Yeah.
I remember when you were in college and you had this math class or accounting class. It was an accounting class. You came in and you were so frustrated. You didn't know what to do. Or there was a lesson. And I remember you started crying. And I wanted to grab the computer and just do the work myself for you because I just wanted to stop the pain.
Yeah.
But I knew if I did that, then your impulse would be, well, I can't figure it out. I'm going to go to dad and dad's going to fix it for me.
Yeah.
And in the short run, that's okay. It makes me feel great. But in the long run, you're going to be paralyzed with fear and you're going to adopt that fixed mindset. Whereas if I can't figure it out, I'm just going to quit.
Yeah.
Whereas the struggle and the heartache in the short run is real. I still feel that when I still think about that picture in my mind of you walking into the kitchen and struggling and asking me for help. And honestly, I didn't really know it either. So even if I could help you, I wouldn't be able to. But there were some things I could have helped you with, but I let you fail. And you figured it out. You did it. You went upstairs. It took you 5 hours or 6 hours, but you did. You figured it out, Mike.
Yeah. And the irony of that is anyone who's taking accounting classes right now, I have met people who have been like, my current job right now is nowhere near as difficult as some of the basic accounting classes. So all I'm saying is if you can figure that out, you'll be fine.
And I think from an entrepreneurial standpoint, from a family being entrepreneurs or just wanting to teach their kids about using money, to me, I don't want to say the right way, but you want to teach your kids to be producers instead of just consumers. Yeah. So we're taught in school, in life that, hey, we make $1. We just have this dollar and we consume it. Instead of let's earn the dollar through investing. And once we earn the dollar, we're producing something. We're being constructive. That the talents, going back to the story, they received 5 talents. They made 5 talents when they're 5 talents. You consume by the production of those 5 talents. Whereas the other one, he got the talent, he buried it, and actually he's going to consume from that. He didn't create anything. He didn't produce anything. So as a parent, if you can switch that mindset of not only just getting money and consuming out of the money you have, but producing, being productive out of that dollar and spending money from there, your mindset shifts. Instead of just saying, like you said, I want.
Yeah.
Well, what do I need? And then out of the things that I want, let me use the production that I've created to buy the things that I want.
Yeah. So I've got a story about that. So I think 2018 or 19 was the first time I started investing in real estate. And every dollar I had in that checking account went towards this property. And I'm like, this is years of saving and just choosing not to buy things for the sake of putting it towards the future. And that one property grew so much that I was sold out of that, bought out of that. We did a couple of refinances, sold some land off on that. And that was the start of my financial journey. And then in 2021, I think basically, again, same thing. To a higher degree, everything I had went away. We did a cash out refinance a year and a half later or so. And I'll say this on camera. I'm fine with that. The amount was $55,000. And I don't even think I bought anything from that. No guitar, no jewelry, no car, whatever. All of that went right back into an investment. And that's stung like a bee on the forehead. You know what I mean? And
I've never gotten stung on the bee on the forehead, but I'm assuming that's
probably hurts.
That pretty hurts. Yeah.
But again, like had I not done that, my entire portfolio would not have existed today. Right. And just last week, I think it was the other day, I've been looking at this really nice guitar for the past like 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hold off on this right now. Everything I have is going to go back into real estate. 50 to 75% of what I make is being put away right now. And I said, this is the time. I built up enough to be able to say, to heck with it. I'm going to buy this right now because I've built up enough.
And you've earned it.
Yes.
And you enjoyed it. That's what happy money is all about to me, is the ability, attract money in your life positively, but also be able to enjoy the money. Now, let's preface a couple of things, because people may be listening and saying, well, how are you able to create all this wealth? Don't you have expenses? Well, I understand that you were a truly, my parents did the same thing for me. You're a truly responsible person. If I thought that I was going to allow you to invest in my deals, and yet you were going to go out and squander all of your money, I wouldn't have allowed that to happen.
Fair enough.
So I'm teaching you that habit of being able to delay the gratification, right? And listen, I'm paying your car insurance. I'm paying a lot of bills, but I know that if you had to, you'd pay them on your own. But I'm helping you save money. I'm helping you build the foundation. I'm helping you build the habits. That's what parents need to do with their children. They need to help them build those habits. And once you have the habits ingrained, it becomes a lot easier for you to start putting that into play. So then when you do get a large sum of money, your first inclination is not, hey, I'm going to go spend it, buy a guitar. I'm going to invest some of it back, and I'm going to enjoy some of it.
Exactly.
I'm going to become a financial steward of my money.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to teach our children, to become financial stewards of their money.
Yeah. It's funny. Dave Ramsey, people give Dave Ramsey a lot of like nonsense about you got to save all your money. I watch a lot of his calls, and if anyone is responsible enough with their money, they got a lot of money back. One guy called him. He's like, I've got 1.7 million in the bank from saving up. And he goes, I want to buy $100,000 car. And he goes, this is my expenses, this. And he's like, cool, go buy it. And that was it.
Yes.
He goes, what? He goes, yeah, you've earned it. You have enough money. That's it. Go buy it.
I don't know who said this. It may have been Dave Ramsey. But if you can take a pile of money and you can put it on your floor and you can burn it. And
that was the same call. He's like, if you can set $100,000 of your money on fire, you've got 1.6. What's that going to do for you? And same thing.
I love that analogy because it doesn't affect you. It doesn't hurt you. The problem with people when they start saving money like that, it's one of their money personas. If they become such a saver, where Michael, all of a sudden, that's their inclination, they become scarce with their money. All of a sudden, your legacy is one of scarcity. I'm saving this money. Well, what are you saving it for?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like God's giving you a gift. I'm going to save my gift. I'm not going to share it.
Yeah.
Would you do that if you knew?
It's crazy when you think about it, right? Yeah.
Yes, you should enjoy it. You've had the ability to save all this money. we're not saving it for a rainy day. You're saving it to enjoy it. And actually money becomes the tool to be able to create impact for other people as well.
Yeah. And the other thing with Ramsey that I like is he always speaks about, and this is our topic, whose money do I have? Like every dollar we make is not even ours, right? Like we don't take it with us when we die. It's all God's, right? And so we are the money managers for God, I guess you could say.
And I love that. We don't take it, but what my goal and what my hope is that I'm preparing you to become the steward, and you and my children. And I'm sure my wife is going to outlast me. So I'm trying to prepare her for the legacy as well. So that when all of it is not just the money, Michael, everyone thinks about legacy just as money, but isn't it also the values that we're trying to pass on
of course.
to you? Whether it's, a religious life, whether it's values of family and faith, those are just more important than just the money. But I need to prepare you for the money because we live in a world of finance. So if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be a lot of stress.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of stress taking over. There's going to be a lot of fighting amongst the siblings.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want it to be cohesive. I want you guys to all be part of the plan. So not only affects you, but it affects your kids, my grandkids, and then our great grandkids. So legacy is just not, one generation. It can be passed on to multiple generations.
Yeah. And even with that, the whole idea that our legacy and your wealth is going to pass down to us, right? This is the time right now to build those fundamentals into the kids, right? Like right now, like I'm saying, I'm 22. And like I said, a lot of the money I have is going back in. This is the foundation for me 10 years from now, to be able to have enough wealth to, if I want to take 2 weeks off and go to the Bahamas with my kids, I'm able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like this is the time for me to build it up right now. And especially, like I said before, with your legacy, this is the time to foster those good relationships with the siblings to avoid any of that craziness 40, 50 years down the road.
So how would you define legacy? If you had to define legacy, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's the whole family's values and ideas, particularly we're practicing Catholic, right? And so that's the biggest one, is making sure that stays in the family and that never leaves, right? And then following that, our values as just individuals in general, right? Like, what is it that we seek out to do, right? We seek out the kingdom first, and then following that, okay, now we're big on investing. And so I want to keep that in the family, right? And so that's a good question. What exactly is legacy? Yeah, just making sure you pass those things down, really. Making sure that doesn't leave the family.
Cecilia shared with me the quote. And I always mess the quote up for some reason. It's really the gardener planting a seed in the garden and not being able to see it come to fruition, not being able to see that seed grow. But you're watering it, you're taking care of it, you're weeding it, you're spending time, you're focusing on it, on all the important aspects of it. You may not see that tomato plant grow, but that you have a lot factored into it, and you're going to really affect how that tomato plant grows. Yeah.
That's the thing with the Italians, right? The Italians would do that. They would plant the olive tree, and then 40 years from now, it was for their kids, and they didn't even make any money from it.
That's what Romans would say. Romans would basically say, I'm planting this olive grove to make my kids wealthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if you do that, I think kids understand, and they feel the love, and they understand the connection, and then they understand the responsibility and the hard work that the parents did to be able to pass that on to their kids. And hopefully that bestows upon you, and then you can start bestowing those values upon your children.
Exactly, yeah.
Michael, so if we take this full circle and we go back to the talent story, how would you like to wrap up the conversation?
Whatever you receive from God or from anyone else, whether that be, let's start with God, the grace of God, right? Whatever you receive, don't hold that back, right? Just let it go.
And if you're afraid, what is your thoughts on that? Because some people may be afraid. They may be afraid to step out. They may not be able to think that they can, trust in God.
Yeah.
What God's got planned for them.
I feel like if you weren't afraid, there's something wrong. Like there's something going on that shouldn't be wrong. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right. But it comes down to a conscious decision to say, I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right. There has to be this threshold between, like, I'm afraid right here, this is it. But my ability to, like, I'd rather have the outcome that's supposed to happen. I'd rather have that more than my ability to be afraid. And so once you break that threshold of, I really don't care what I think, I'm going to do it anyway, then it's going to work.
Stephen Pressfield wrote a book called The War of Art. And in that book, which is an awesome book, I don't know if you read it. We've interviewed him a couple of times on the Jake and Gino show. There's a word that he uses in there. It's called resistance. It took Stephen Pressfield years and years and years to write his first book. He had all these jobs. He was running away. And that's what happens with us sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we come into that word resistance. And I agree with you. If there is no fear, if there's no resistance, then it doesn't really matter. Right? But if you know that you shouldn't be in the kitchen washing dishes, you know that you shouldn't be buying guitars early on, that you should be investing in your future and going to college and learning. Those are things you don't want to do, but you know deep down you have to do them. I think that's what you have to lean into. Knowing that Michael's afraid, Gino's afraid, we're all afraid of what we're here to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Understanding that and having that fear is like, okay, now I know what my calling is, because I know this is bigger than what me. I know that I need to lean into this fear.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Any final comments for our viewers?
This was a lot of fun.
It was, wasn't it?
Because the parable, sometimes I just focus on the money. And that's the interesting thing. And from what you were explaining to me, it's not just the talents. Well, it is the talents, but we all are bestowed these talents, and it's our duty to find out what our talents are and how we can share them and amplify them with the rest of the world. If you'd like to learn more about Barbaro 360, please go to barbaro360.com and learn how we are trying to change the world one family at a time.